Welcome to the deep dive. You've sent us something really compelling today. It's an excerpt from episode 212, Hey, beautiful.pdf by Jaime Hoerricks, PhD.
That's right.
And we should note, it's pronounced J-A, me, and they use they, them pronouns.
Good point.
The piece itself, well, the subtitle kind of says it all. A celebration of neurodivergent joy, embodiment, and survival in the face of erasure. Not a rebuttal, but a coronation.
That word coronation, it really sets the tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not defensive.
No, not at all. It's like an assertion of inherent worth, of triumph, right from the start.
Exactly. Instead of arguing for their validity, JME is just stating it as a fact, which, in a world that often pathologizes neurodivergence, that's a big deal.
Absolutely. And that's really what we want to explore for you today. Our mission here is to unpack Jaime's core arguments. We're looking at the neurodivergent experience, variations like autism or ADHD, and how Jaime talks about joy, not just finding joy despite challenges, but, well, as something vital.
Yeah, maybe even a source of strength.
So let's start with that initial paradox Jaime mentions. Finding joy amidst what they call so much ruin. This idea of celebrating even when, the narrative around you is about being broken or needing to be fixed.
It's quite powerful. And they state it so boldly. I know something they don't. I've already won. What does that hit you with?
It immediately flips the power dynamic, I think. It's not about measuring up to some external standard.
Yeah.
It's about, defining victory on your own terms. Just existing authentically, thriving in your own way. That is the win. It completely reframes how we think about difference, doesn't it?
Totally. And that ties straight into how Jaime reacts to the whole idea of finding the cause for autism.
Yeah.
They mention RFK Jr.'s comments about September.
Yes.
And Jaime hears that talk, that search for a cause, as an elegy, like a lament for them.
Wow, an elegy.
Yeah, they interpret it as this underlying desire to wipe them clean from the story.
Yeah.
It's a really strong, visceral reaction.
It makes you pause, right? The idea that a scientific search could feel, to the people it's about, like an attempt at elimination, not understanding, but erasure. It definitely makes you question the assumptions behind that kind of quest.
And what's so brilliant is how Jaime uses a personal story from college football to illustrate this point. Can you walk us through that anecdote?
Okay, yeah. So Jaime talks about being shifted to right tackle, a new position, and facing this absolute star player named Tagaloa.
Huge challenge, presumably.
Huge. Everyone expected them to get crushed. But Jaime didn't just rely on brute force. They watched Tagaloa obsessively, looking for tiny details, a little flaw, what they call a glitch in his stance or movement. And by finding and exploiting that one specific observation, they really managed to hold their own to succeed.
And the insight Jaime draws from that it's profound.
No, yes.
They realized later that this intense focus, this pattern recognition, wasn't just luck. It was, part of their neurodivergent way of processing the world.
Exactly what someone else might see as a deficit, or maybe just a quirk.
They recognized as a genuine strength.
Right.
A different way of seeing, of analyzing,
Yeah.
that allowed them to adapt and, win in that situation. It makes you think, how often is a disorder just a different operating system?
Right, and they've already spent their lives adapting, surviving, figuring out how to navigate a world not really designed for them.
So the idea of finding a cause to prevent this way of being
Feels completely off. It undermines the very thing that gives them that unique perspective, that resilience. It's like saying the tool they use to succeed is actually a defect to be eliminated.
Which leads us right into this really vivid analogy Jaime uses growing up neurodivergent as an invisible BDS training.
Oh, yeah. That one hits hard.
Tell us about that comparison. What kind of daily challenges does it capture?
Well, BDS is famously grueling, right? This intense Navy SEAL training.
Right.
Jaime uses it to describe the constant, unseen effort of navigating a neurotypical world. It's not physical obstacles, but the daily grit of misunderstanding. The sensory overload. Think about the relentless hum of fluorescent lights, or the overwhelming noise and visual chaos of a school cafeteria. For some, that's not just annoying, it's physically painful or completely disorienting.
Yeah, it's like a constant drain on your resources.
Exactly. And there's that feeling of always being too much or not enough. And unlike BUDS, there's often no graduation, no endpoint. It's just life.
And Jaime gets really specific about these things, don't they? It's not abstract.
No, not at all. They talk about getting a late diagnosis, feeling like a mystery no one bothered solving.
Imagine that feeling.
Or not realizing you're hungry until you're physically shaking. Or the intense sensitivity to heat, cold, even clothing tags, things many people wouldn't even notice.
Yeah, or the difficulty with unspoken social rules, expected ways of talking, and then the inevitable burnout from just coping all the time.
But here's the crucial part, the reframing. Jaime doesn't present these as failures. They're framed as victories, as evidence of incredible survival skills. They talk about creating coping mechanisms, like using internal scripts for conversations when spontaneous chat feels impossible.
Or stimming, flapping hands, rocking not as weird behaviors, but as necessary ways to self-regulate, to hold themselves together.
It completely shifts the narrative. It's not about deficits, it's about ingenuity and resilience in the face of constant challenge.
Which brings us really nicely to the section called We Were Never Lost. It has this very different feel, almost poetic.
Yeah, it's beautiful, deeply affirming.
What stood out for you there? What's the core message?
I think it's that deep sense of inherent worth, that you were never broken or lost to begin with. That line, how silly of me to forget that I am the love of my life.
Wow.
It just lands, rejecting the need for external validation. And that image of the body as a beautiful, buzzing signal tower, mistaken for static.
That's such a powerful metaphor for misunderstood sensory experiences.
Isn't it? It perfectly captures how neurodivergent ways of being are often just misinterpreted by a world tuned to a different frequency.
Definitely. And Jaime talks about creating their own ways. I spoke in scripts because your world didn't fit, or explaining stimming. I flapped to hold the pieces together. It's not about being wrong. It's about adapting.
Right. It's this powerful claiming of self. A refusal to be diagnosed out of existence or solved away. It's about demanding to be cherished exactly as they are.
And this theme deepens in the next section. The love of my life wears my face. It feels like it goes even further into this self-love idea.
It does, especially connecting it to feeling like an outsider. The story about discovering the music of the Smiths.
Oh yeah, that's so relatable.
Isn't it? For anyone who's felt misfiled and misread, finding art or music that just gets it, that's huge.
It's like finding a reflection, finally.
Yeah.
Jaime talks about how Morrissey's lyrics didn't offer solutions, but they offered recognition. Permission to feel those complex, maybe melancholic feelings like, oh, someone else feels this too.
Exactly. And that becomes a foundation for the kind of self-love Jaime is talking about. It's not like glossy affirmations.
Yeah, it sounds much grittier than that.
Yeah, it's described as revolt, riot, refusal, something built from the fragments, the pieces they left me. It's defiant.
And that line returns. How silly of me to forget that I am the love of my life. Jaime stresses it's not narcissism.
Right, it's recognition.
Yeah, finally seeing and accepting the whole self. The nonlinear speech, the intense feelings, the body that might not always cooperate in expected ways. It's about finally being allowed to be.
And this self-love isn't just personal. It's positioned as the center, the resistance, even the revolution.
Which leads into a really interesting discussion, the role of joy in leftist imagination. This might seem like a surprising turn.
A little, yeah. They start with that Che Guevara quote, something about enemies.
Right, about how your enemies can tell you something about yourself. Jaime connects this to the idea that joyfully existing, especially when you don't fit the mold, can itself be an act of resistance against systems demanding obedience.
So joy isn't just a feeling, it's potentially subversive.
That's the argument. Jaime acknowledges that leftist movements often focus, quite rightly, on grief and struggle. But they argue joy isn't secondary to that. It's essential. It's the stubborn presence of aliveness despite it all.
Refusing to be defined only by the struggle.
Exactly. And they bring in some heavy hitters, Audre Lorde, Adrienne Ray Brown, Jose Esteban Munoz, all talking about the radical power of joy, pleasure, and hope.
And specifically for neurodivergent, trans, disabled folks.
Jaime says joy isn't just nice. It's ancestral, feral, divine. It shows up in ways that might not look like conventional happiness, like stimming, like unique ways of expressing excitement.
That connection between joy and self-knowledge is key too, isn't it?
Absolutely. Learning to read your own mind, understand your own needs and joys, especially when society tries to tell you how you should feel or think. And then that statement, I am not a cause, I am a constellation.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Rejecting simplification, embracing complexity. And it's joy, Jaime says, that sustains this, the kind that hums when I speak in fragments and still feel whole.
Beautifully put. Okay, so towards the end, Jaime anticipates that some people might find this work, well, serious or heavy.
Right. And they draw a really sharp line here.
Between what?
Between genuine allies, or comrades as they put it, who understand that struggle and celebration can exist together, and those who just want superficial positivity, those who can't handle the discomfort.
Ah, the reactionaries in recycled wrapping.
Exactly. A critique of performative positivity that ignores the real work needed. Jaime insists their writing is a celebration, even the tough parts. It's a joyful act of creation, proof they're still here, still fighting for a better world.
So that revolutionary joy isn't something you get after the struggle.
It is part of the struggle. It's resistance. It's something people who've faced down serious adversity often understand intuitively. And the piece ends with this deep gratitude to past self, ancestors, present self.
Underscoring that final point, I'm not waiting to be loved. I am already loved.
Yeah, it circles right back to that inherent worth. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Jaime Hoerricks' work, what are the main things maybe sticking with you or that our listener might reflect on?
I mean, for me, it's that incredibly strong assertion of neurodivergent joy as resistance. Just flat out rejecting the idea that difference needs fixing.
Right, that critique of the search for a cause as potentially harmful erasure.
Yeah, and the power of self-acceptance, self-love, not just as a personal feeling, but as a radical act. Choosing to cherish yourself in a world that might not.
Definitely. And that core message, I'm already loved, it just resonates, doesn't it? It challenges us all to think about what normal even means and the value of authentic existence.
It really leaves you thinking, about the simple yet profound act of being yourself, and how that alone can be a cause for celebration, especially against pressure to conform. If this sparks something for you, we really do recommend seeking out the full piece by Jaime Hoerricks. Remember, that's J-A-Y-M-E, using they, them pronouns.
A really powerful read.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.